All India Radio presents Morning News. Good morning, I am Saira Mujtaba and with me is Subhadra Ramachandran. The headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to attend 12th Brics Summit today. Centre constitutes multidisciplinary teams to visit all private hospitals in Delhi to check compliance of COVID-19 guidelines. Bharat Biotech starts phase 3 trials of Covaxin. Colleges and higher education institutes set to open in Karnataka. Second phase of Malabar exercise begins today in Northern Arabian Sea. And India says UN Security Council has become an impaired organ because of its unrepresentative nature. As the nation fights the COVID-19 pandemic, we begin with a message of precaution to stay safe and protected by following these 3 simple steps. Wear a face mask, maintain 2 gaz ki duri for social distancing, focus on hand and face hygiene. And now the news in detail. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will attend the 12th Brics Summit today, hosted by Russia, under the theme Global Stability, Shared Security and Innovative Growth. The meeting will be held in a virtual format. A report.
The 12th summit is being held in the backdrop of the 75th anniversary of the United Nations and in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. Leaders would be discussing intra-Brics cooperation and key issues in the global context, including the reform of the multilateral system, measures to mitigate the impact of the ongoing pandemic, cooperation in counter-terrorism, trade, health, energy, and people-to-people exchanges. India will be taking over the chairship of the Brics. Since its inception, it would be the 3rd Brics presidency for India after 2012 and 2016. India will host the 13th Brics Summit next year. With Suparna Saikia, Tripti Srivastav, AIR News, Delhi.
The Ministry of Home Affairs has said that multidisciplinary teams have been constituted to visit all private hospitals in Delhi to check the status of compliance of various directions issued by the Union Health Ministry for testing and treating COVID patients, and that by Delhi government to contain the spread of COVID-19. The ministry said the teams will start their visit immediately and they will submit their reports within 2 days along with specific details. The teams have been given a list of tasks and have to report to MHA if the private hospitals have wards and ICU beds in accordance with orders issued by the Delhi government and if it has been displayed on the Corona dashboard of the Delhi government on a real-time basis. The teams will also be checking any violations. The Delhi High Court last week vacated a stay imposed by a single judge bench on Delhi government's order on the reservation of 80% ICU beds in 33 private hospitals for COVID-19 patients.
The country's COVID-19 recovery rate has reached 93.27%. More than 43,000 COVID patients recovered during the last 24 hours. According to Health Ministry, the total number of recoveries has gone up to over 82,49,000. The actual caseload currently comprises only 5.26% of the total positive cases. Presently, the total number of active cases in the country is 4,65,000. During the past 24 hours, 30,548 new cases were reported, taking the total number of positive cases to over 88,45,000. The ministry said that effective implementation of the strategic and graded test, track and treat approach has led to higher recoveries and lower fatality. Currently, India's case fatality rate is at 1.47%, which is one of the lowest globally. During the last 24 hours, 435 deaths were reported, taking the toll to 1,30,070. According to Indian Council of Medical Research, over 8,61,000 tests were conducted during the last 24 hours. The total number of samples tested so far has gone up to 12 crore 56 lakh. A total of 3,797 new confirmed cases of coronavirus infection were reported in Delhi during the last 24 hours, taking the total number of cases to 4,89,202. According to Delhi Health Department, 3,560 recoveries have been reported in Delhi, taking the number of recovered patients to 4,41,361. The death toll due to COVID-19 in the national capital reached to 7,713 after 99 deaths were reported in Delhi in the last 24 hours. There are 40,128 active cases in the national capital. As per the department, 11,810 RT-PCR, CBNAA, TrueNat tests and 18,011 rapid antigen tests were conducted yesterday, taking the total number of tests to 54,79,391.
Gujarat recorded 926 new cases in the last 24 hours. Recovery rate further improved and reached up to 91.41%. More from our correspondent.
Gujarat has recorded a total 1,89,236 cases till now. Out of this, 1,72,972 patients recovered. 1,040 patients recovered during the last 24 hours. More than 68,76,000 tests have been carried out in the state till date. Maximum 225 new cases reported from Ahmedabad. At present, total active cases in the state are 12,456. 5 patients died yesterday, taking the total deaths due to COVID-19 up to 3,808. Deputy Chief Minister of Gujarat, Nitin Patel, reviewed the situation in a meeting held at Ahmedabad Civil Hospital yesterday. He announced to set up a separate ward with 100 ventilators in 1,200-bed civil hospital. He also announced to increase daily testing capacity in view of recent festivals. Yogesh Pandya, AR News, Ahmedabad.
In Madhya Pradesh, more than 1,72,000 patients have recovered so far. 745 patients were discharged from the hospital in the past 24 hours. There are now 8,996 active cases in Madhya Pradesh. More from our correspondent.
The number of daily infected patients has come down to around 500 in Madhya Pradesh after several days. Similarly, the positivity rate has also come down to 4.6%. No new patients were reported in 4 districts yesterday, whereas in 35 districts the number of active patients remained less than 10. Maximum 141 people have been infected in Bhopal, while 89 new infections have been reported in Indore yesterday. Meanwhile, the number of COVID-19 cases in the state climbed up to around 1,84,000 after 597 new cases were reported in the past 24 hours. With 2 patients succumbing to the infection, the death toll rose to 3,092. At the same time, with around 13,000 tests conducted yesterday, the total number of tests in the state has exceeded 33 lakhs. Sanjeev Sharma, AIR News, Bhopal.
The number of corona-infected patients in Chhattisgarh has crossed the 2,10,000 mark. So far, about 1,90,000 COVID-positive patients in the state have recovered after being treated in hospitals or in home isolation. A report.
In Chhattisgarh, the number of COVID-19 tests have been increased to identify corona-infected patients. 2,225 centers have been established for corona tests across the state. Of these, 1,019 centers have the facility of rapid antigen test, while RT-PCR testing can be done at 640 centers. Apart from this, samples of suspected patients are being taken for the test through TrueNat method at 546 centers. The health department has set a daily target to conduct about 8,400 samples through RT-PCR method. In rural and urban areas, health workers are going door to door to identify people with symptoms similar to corona infection under the Health Protection Campaign. Vikalp Shukla, AIR News, Raipur.
In Odisha, COVID-19 recovery rate continues to rise with each passing day. As many as 1,297 persons recovered yesterday, taking the total recovery in the state to 2,99,159. On the other hand, 749 persons were reported positive during the last 24 hours, taking the tally to 3,09,408. We have more from our correspondent.
With the present rate of recovery, the state is just a day away from crossing the 3 lakh mark. The sustained growth in recovery has caused a significant degrowth in active caseload of the state, which has gone down below 10,000. Meanwhile, in yet another proactive step against the virus, the state government has prohibited Chhath Puja and mass bathing at river banks and ghats on the 28th and 21st of this month. People of the state, too, have been cooperating with the administration by adopting anti-congregational approach, particularly during religious occasions, be it Dasera or Diwali. Girish Chandra Das, Bhubaneswar.
In Karnataka, the colleges are opening doors for the final year undergraduate and postgraduate students today. The government, management and faculties of colleges have made arrangements to take precautionary measures as per University Grant Commission for the prevention of the COVID-19 pandemic. The students, teachers and non-teaching staff underwent RT-PCR tests for COVID-19. Only those with negative reports are allowed in the college today. More from our correspondent.
The colleges were allocated primary health centers where they could deposit their throat and nasal swabs. Bruhat Bengaluru Mahanagara Palike had made arrangements for 60,000 students, teachers and non-teaching staff of 432 colleges in Bengaluru. According to their allocation, 141 primary health centers were made available for testing. Around 450 mobile swab collection teams were also deployed near colleges. The reports were uploaded on ICMR portal. The Bengaluru University Vice Chancellor, Professor Venugopal, has informed that canteens will remain closed. Libraries will only issue books with reference section closed. Students are asked to sanitize their hands, wear masks, maintain social distancing. The Deputy Chief Minister and Minister for Higher Education, Dr. C.N. Ashwath Narayana, is visiting colleges today to see the arrangements. Sudhindra, AIR News, Bengaluru.
In Tamil Nadu, the COVID-19 curve continues on its downward spiral, with the new cases dipping to 1,725. Active caseload has also come down to 15,765. Meanwhile, the counselling for state undergraduate medical admission is set to start from tomorrow. We have a report.
The rank list for the Tamil Nadu MBBS and BDS admission has been released in Chennai by the State Health Minister Dr. C. Vijay Bhaskar yesterday. The counselling is to be held from the 18th in person in the city. Government medical colleges have 3,650 MBBS and 194 BDS seats, out of which 3,032 MBBS and 165 BDS seats will be filled up by the state government. In private colleges, a total of 2,100 MBBS and 1,760 BDS seats are available. From them, 1,147 MBBS seats will fall under the state quota. There are 23,707 applicants for the government seats, satisfying all eligibility criteria. A distinct feature in the counselling this year is that 7.5% of the seats will be given to the NEET qualified government school students. Jaish, AIR News, Chennai.
Bharat Biotech has started Phase 3 trials of Covaxin. The Phase 3 trials will involve 26,000 volunteers across India, conducted in partnership with ICMR. It is the largest clinical trial conducted for a COVID-19 vaccine in India. This is India's first Phase 3 efficacy study for a COVID-19 vaccine and the largest Phase 3 efficacy trial ever conducted in India. The trial has been registered at www.ctri.nic.in and approved by the Drugs Controller General of India. Covaxin has been evaluated in 1,000 subjects in Phase 1 and Phase 2 clinical trials with promising safety and immunogenicity data. Volunteers who wish to participate in this trial should be adults over 18 years of age. Covaxin, India's indigenous COVID-19 vaccine by Bharat Biotech, is developed in collaboration with the Indian Council of Medical Research and National Institute of Virology. This indigenous inactivated vaccine is developed and manufactured in Bharat Biotech's BSL-3 biocontainment facility. Health Minister Dr. Harshvardhan has said that there is no better future without health for all. Digitally chairing the WHO Executive Board yesterday, the minister highlighted global partnerships and investment in global public health for strengthening healthcare systems. He said that in the gravest of situations, humankind has conquered its adversaries with collaborations and supplementing efforts of each other by pooling resources.
The pandemic has made humanity acutely aware of the consequences of ignoring health systems, strengthening and preparedness. In such times of global crisis, risk management and mitigation both would require further strengthening of global partnerships to reinvigorate interest and investment in global public health.
The minister expressed India's commitment to work with WHO, the member states and the global community of partners for efficient, effective and responsive discharge of public health obligations. He added that the Southeast Asia region and India are continuously striving to improve healthcare services, their reach, delivery and quality.
You are listening to the morning news on All India Radio. A reminder of the headlines before we move on. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to attend 12th Brics Summit today. Centre constitutes multidisciplinary teams to visit all private hospitals in Delhi to check compliance of COVID-19 guidelines. Bharat Biotech starts Phase 3 trials of Covaxin. Colleges and higher education institutes set to open in Karnataka. Second phase of Malabar exercise begins today in northern Arabian Sea. And India says UN Security Council has become an impaired organ because of its unrepresentative nature. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on our Twitter handle @AIR News Alerts.
News Services Division of All India Radio brings to you program Employment News in association with the Publications Division, Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. An effective platform for information on job vacancies, training programs, admission notices, results and career advice with experts. Every day at 4:20 p.m. on FM Gold and other frequencies and on our YouTube channel AIR News Official. चलो मिलकर एक शुरुआत करें, चलो एक फैसला आज करें, मास्क नहीं तो टोकेंगे, कोरोना को रोकेंगे, चलो एक इरादा करते हैं, चलो कुछ वादा करते हैं, मास्क नहीं तो टोकेंगे, कोरोना को रोकेंगे.
Welcome back. You're listening to Morning News. The second phase of Malabar Exercise 2020 will begin today in the northern Arabian Sea, taking forward the synergy achieved in the recently concluded Phase 1 of Malabar Exercise 2020, which was conducted earlier this month. This phase will involve coordinated operations of increasing complexity between the navies of Australia, India, Japan and the United States. Phase 2 will witness joint operations centered around the Vikramaditya Carrier Battle Group of the Indian Navy and Nimitz Carrier Strike Group of the US Navy. The two carriers, along with other ships, submarine and aircraft of the participating navies, would be engaged in high-intensity naval operations over 4 days. These exercises include cross-deck flying operations and advanced air defense exercises by MiG-29K fighters of Vikramaditya and F-18 fighters and E-2C Hawkeye from Nimitz. News just in. Special Cell of Delhi Police has nabbed 2 Jaish and Mohammed terrorists and foiled a major attack in the national capital. Officials are now questioning the 2 terrorists arrested from Sarai Kale Khan area. According to the police, a trap was laid near Millennium Park in Sarai Kale Khan around 10:15 p.m. last night. The 2 terrorists, who are residents of Jammu and Kashmir, were apprehended along with 2 semi-automatic pistols and 10 live cartridges. The first meeting of the newly constituted Bihar cabinet will take place today. The meeting has been convened at 11:30 a.m. in the Secretariat. Chief Minister Nitish Kumar will chair the meeting, in which newly elected 14 ministers will remain present. The cabinet will give nod to convene the first meeting of the newly constituted 17th Bihar Legislative Assembly. The first meeting of the 17th Bihar Legislative Assembly is scheduled to commence from the 23rd of this month. Meanwhile, allocation of portfolios among the members of the cabinet has not been finalized. It is expected to be completed today.
Actor Sonu Sood has been appointed as State Icon of Punjab by the Election Commission of India (ECI). The decision of honouring Sonu Sood with the title comes after he earned laurels for his humanitarian work during the lockdown. Sonu has been helping migrant workers reach their hometowns amid the coronavirus pandemic. He also helped people by giving them face masks, food, mobile phones and more. Expressing happiness, Sonu Sood said he is overwhelmed and extremely grateful for this honour. He said having been born in Punjab, this appointment means so much to him emotionally. Tamil Nadu has over 6.1 crore voters as per the draft electoral roll that was released yesterday. An interesting feature is that women voters outnumber men by a margin of more than 8.14 lakh. The draft electoral roll was released by the State Chief Electoral Officer Satyabrata Sahu in Chennai after an exhaustive special summary revision exercise. Sholinganallur Assembly constituency in Chennai has the largest electoral base with over 6.55 lakh voters. Kilvelur constituency is the smallest with 1.73 lakh voters. Applications for corrections, additions, deletions and change of address in the list can be made till the 15th of December. The final voters' roll is scheduled to be released by the 20th of January.
An urgent meeting of the Law Committee of the Goods and Services Tax or GST Council has been convened tomorrow in New Delhi to discuss in detail the issue of fake invoices to claim input tax credit under the indirect tax regime. The meet will deliberate on ways to further tighten the GST registration process and work out other legal measures, including necessary law amendment required in GST Act to do away with the menace of fake invoicing. This meeting is part of the nationwide drive against the GST fake invoice frauds, under which in the last 4 days, Directorate General of GST Intelligence (DGGI) has arrested 25 persons, including 2 professionals, identified about 1,180 entities, and booked 350 cases against unscrupulous elements involved in availing and passing on of ineligible input tax credit (ITC) fraudulently. Employees Provident Fund Organization (EPFO) has facilitated multiple options for EPS pensioners to submit their digital life certificate (DLC) close to their home or at their doorstep owing to the pandemic. Jeevan Pramar Patra submitted through all these modes or agencies is equally valid. In addition to the 135 regional offices and 117 district offices of EPFO, EPS pensioners can now submit DLC at pension disbursing bank branch and nearest post offices. DLC can also be submitted at the nationwide network of over 3.65 lakh common services centers. Apart from this, EPS pensioners can also submit DLC using the Umang app.
Paddy procurement for Kharif 2020-2021 is continuing smoothly in the procuring states and UTs with purchase of over 281.28 lakh metric tons LMTs of paddy till yesterday against last year's corresponding purchase of 233.89 LMT. This is an increase of 20.25% over last year. Out of the total purchase of 281.28 LMT, Punjab alone has contributed 196.13 LMT, which is 69.73% of total procurement. About 24.14 lakh farmers have already been benefited from the ongoing procurement operations with a MSV value of over 53,000 crore rupees. This festive season has yielded great dividends to the Khadi artisans with a record sale of Khadi products. In just 40 days since the 2nd of October, Khadi single-day sales figure has crossed 1 crore mark by 4 times at that flagship Khadi India outlet at Connaught Place in New Delhi. On 13th November, the total sale at this outlet stood at 1.11 crore rupees, the highest single-day sale figure recorded this year.
India has said that the UN Security Council has become an impaired organ as it is unable to act with credibility, essentially due to its unrepresentative nature. India's permanent representative to the UN, T.S. Tirumurthy, said, intergovernmental negotiations or IGN has become a platform for university-like debate rather than a serious result-oriented process in the UN consisting of sovereign member states.
Today's Security Council is an impaired organ. It has been unable to act with credibility essentially due to its unrepresentative nature. Inside the IGN, nothing has moved for more than a decade, except hearing passionate statements on the need for reform. In fact, it has not progressed since it is not only informal, but it has no rules of procedure and has no records. For a decade, it has remained that way.
Mr. Tirumurthy was speaking at the 75th session of the United Nations General Assembly last night. He said that inside the IGN, nothing has moved for more than a decade except hearing passionate statements on the need for reform.
And why have we come to this pass? That's because just a handful of countries don't want us to proceed. They have stopped the IGN from progressing. They are using the IGN as a smokescreen to stop themselves from being identified by paying lip service to Security Council reform. The conditions they are laying out are impossible to fulfill, which is full consensus of all member states. Ironically, this is happening at a time when we are in a tearing hurry last week to give ourselves e-voting rights. But for the IGN, they want no voting, leave alone e-voting, but only full consensus.
Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison arrived in Tokyo this morning. He will meet his Japanese counterpart, Yoshihide Suga. A landmark military pact will be atop the agenda when the two leaders meet. The move is aimed at countering China's growing influence in the South China Sea and over the Pacific Island nations.
National capital Delhi's air quality is in the moderate category today morning, as the overall air quality index AQI was recorded at 162 at 6 a.m. The city has begun struggling with very poor air quality since the beginning of winter season, and it was worsened during Diwali. Spike in farm fires, calm winds were among other reasons for deteriorating air quality in Delhi. In Jammu and Kashmir, Disaster Management Authority has issued a medium danger avalanche warning for the higher reaches of Kupwara and Bandipora districts. It also said that the low danger avalanche warning continues to exist for the higher reaches of Baramulla and Ganderbal districts. People living in these avalanche-prone areas have been advised to take precautionary measures and not to venture out in the avalanche-prone areas. Sports Ministry has sanctioned 10 lakh rupees towards the treatment of hockey Olympian Mohinder Singh. Mr. Singh is suffering from a chronic kidney ailment and is currently on dialysis. The money sanctioned under the Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyay National Welfare Fund for sportspersons was given to his wife Shivjit Singh yesterday. Recently, Sports Minister Kiran Rijiju met Shivjit Singh and several other veteran hockey players to assure them of assistance from the ministry.
And now let's take a look at the weather forecast for today. On to the north in Srinagar, partly cloudy sky is expected today, becoming generally cloudy towards the afternoon or evening or night. The minimum temperature was 1 degree Celsius, while maximum will be around 14 degrees. In Jammu, lower level of temperature was 14 degrees Celsius, while upper level will be around 22 degrees with possibility of light rain. In Leh, partly cloudy sky today. Minimum temperature was -3 degrees Celsius, while maximum will be around 12 degrees Celsius. Gilgit will also experience partly cloudy sky. Temperature will hover between 4 and 16 degrees Celsius. Mainly clear sky in Muzaffarabad is expected today. The temperature will hover between 12 and 20 degrees Celsius. In Dehradun, the temperature will hover between 11 and 27 degrees Celsius. The city will have a mainly clear sky, becoming partly cloudy towards the afternoon or evening. Chandigarh will have a mainly clear sky. Minimum temperature was recorded at 13 degrees Celsius, while maximum is expected to be around 24 degrees Celsius. In Hyderabad, the minimum temperature was 20 degrees Celsius, while maximum will be around 31 degrees Celsius. The city will have a partly cloudy sky with haze. Ahmedabad will see a clear sky today. The minimum temperature was 16 degrees Celsius, while maximum will be around 34 degrees Celsius. Patna will have a mainly partly cloudy sky with temperature hovering between 16 and 27 degrees Celsius. And Guwahati will have fog or mist that would occur in early morning.
And now an overview of today's newspapers. All papers have widely covered the efficacy of the Moderna vaccine. Hindustan Times writes, 94.5% success for Moderna vaccine. The Tribune says, Moderna COVID shots 94% effective in late-stage trials. Hindustan Times also quotes the Delhi government, third peak over, no new lockdown. The Pioneer has covered the newly formed Nitish government in Bihar. The paper reports Nitish returns as CM with new deputies. The Hindu headline, Nitish starts new term with 14-member team. The Asian Age riot disquiet in Congress as Bihar rout Singh. Rebellion 2.0 likely. The Pioneer reports Malabar drill from today, much to China's chagrin. And finally, in some good news, Business Standard reports, government looks to create 5 to 6 million jobs by June.
And now, before we end the bulletin, the headlines once again. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to attend 12th Brics Summit today. Centre constitutes multidisciplinary teams to visit all private hospitals in Delhi to check compliance of COVID-19 guidelines. Bharat Biotech starts phase 3 trials of Covaxin. Colleges and higher education institutes set to open in Karnataka. Second phase of Malabar exercise begins today in Northern Arabian Sea. And India says UN Security Council has become an impaired organ because of its unrepresentative nature. For details of these stories and more, log on to our website www.newsonair.com and News on AIR app. And with that, we end the morning news. Have a great day.